Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. And in today's video, it's a pleasure to be joined by Elijah Pierce. And he's somebody in which is doing really great things in the world rankings. He's top five in lots of bodies, and he's getting himself right in a position for a world title against possibly Nahoya Inoue. And yourself, you've just been out in Japan. How was that experience?
Honestly, it was amazing. Japan has always been somewhere that I've aspired to go and dream to vacate to. Going out there for work, for business was even better because I was getting paid to be out there and still be able to, enjoy, the atmosphere, just enjoy the country in general. So, it was a pleasure, and I'm very thankful to Takashi and Muto Boxing Gym for giving me the pleasure to train there. Shout out to Ryosuke Nishida. He's the IBF champion at bantamweight right now, getting ready to fight Junto Nakatani. I believe June 7th. So, wishing them the best of luck. And, it was just a pleasure, man. I loved it.
I'm sure you're looking around at a lot of these Japanese fighters at the moment, and a name you just mentioned there, Nishida, of course, is fighting Nakatani, and I suppose, do you feel like Nishida is being written off against Nakatani?
Well, to be honest, I haven't really, obviously because it's a language kind of barrier, I haven't really heard too much of or been in tune to too much of the build up.
Mhm.
But, I will say that, Nishida, he looked sharp during camp, sparring wise. He looked really, really good, and did my best to make sure to get him prepared, and I felt like, there were um there were some things that of course he could have done better, but there was also things he done really well. So ultimately, it's going to be up to him to you know to control the outcome of the fight, and I believe that he can. He's a really good guy as well.
And I'm sure you were looking at, Japan as a possible place for yourself to fight in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you never know, man. I got interviewed a couple of times out there. So, you really never know what to expect in boxing. I've been throwing a lot of curveballs in my career thus far. So, that would be another dream in itself to be able to showcase my ability out there.
And I saw a little clip on your Instagram of you dropping somebody outside of the ring, and with a nice body shot, was it? And how did that all come about?
Honestly, I went to the club and I was just kind of just enjoying myself. Like I said, just enjoying the lay of the land and surprisingly, I mean, well, I won't say so surprisingly, but it was just surprising to me that they're so welcoming.
Mhm.
As soon as the security and people inside the club found out that I was a world renowned boxer at that, a world ranked boxer, they showed incredible respect. And so one of the security guards, he asked me abundantly to punch him in the stomach, and he was just like, "Man, it would be an honor for you to punch me in my stomach." So I was like, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah." So I just obliged him, and I did it. So
Was it?
he, huh?
I was going to say, did he handle it well afterwards?
Yeah, he pretty kinda. I mean, he fell to the floor and kind of wallowed in pain for a little bit, but eventually he got up and he shook it off. So all power to him, man. He's a really good guy. And I end up connecting with him through social media and everything. So when I do go back, I'll probably be able to see him again and all the other people that I connected with. And like I said, it was just great, man. The reception that I got, the love, everything. It was bar none. It was exceptional for sure.
Sounds amazing. Like, you get these stories out traveling, and I'm sure, yourself, you've been to, I'm sure, lots of different countries and experienced lots of different cultures. And I suppose, was it a lot more, like you say, welcoming than that of, America where you are now? Do you feel like sometimes when you get mentioned as a fighter, maybe some people look at you a different way?
Well, honestly, I have. That was my very first time out the country.
Oh,
Believe.
wow.
Yeah, so for me to go to my dream country for my first trip, that was even made it more special.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I said, I've been out as far as in the U.S. I've been just about every state for the most part. But no, I actually yeah, that was my very first time out the country, and I definitely see the difference in the welcoming, and how they just trying to treat you when you're somewhat of notability.
Hmm.
So after my fight, and I'm supposed to fight July 25th,
Hmm.
I believe that's the date that I was told. So if that comes into fruition, I'm looking to, go possibly go to the UK next. I made a friend out there
Hmm.
who was also a sparring partner named Dennis McCann.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully me and I'll get to go connect with him out there in the UK and go experience some more.
That would be amazing. I'd be so curious to see how you experience, our culture in the UK. And Dennis McCann is a very well-tipped fighter in the UK. He's got a lot of support there, so it's great to see. I'm sure you'll get some great sparring out there.
Oh,
And
yeah, me and Dennis, we became very close in Japan. He's a really good guy, and
Mhm.
and the funny part about that was we were actually beefing. Like we were actually didn't like
Really?
each other. When I was at 122, I'm now actually campaigning at 126.
Mhm.
But when I was at 122, I was my whole thing has always been trying to get the biggest and best fights possible,
Yeah.
and I seen that he was one of the asterisks in my career has been that no people keep saying that I haven't fought anybody, but I've always tried to fight the best fighters, but nobody has wanted to fight me, and I've gotten ducked a couple of times actually by some very notable fighters,
Mhm.
Mirajan Akhmadaliev, Robeisy Ramirez, that's just to name a few,
Yeah.
and countless others who have ducked me, but. So I just kind of, I would say I'm a bit of a shit talker, and I have no shame in that. So
Mhm.
I just managed to message him and I offered him to fight, and he declined.
Mhm.
But that was kind of like the start of our little back and forth, and we just kind of continued on, and then we ended up meeting in person at this camp with Nishida's camp, and
Mhm.
then after a few discussions, I mean, well, I won't say a few discussions, after really just one discussion, and we just ended up becoming friends, and we actually became super, really, really good friends, actually. So, it was a pleasure to, actually make that happen and kind of get rid of the bad blood. So, shout out to Dennis McCain, man. That's my mate.
That's amazing. And I suppose, like you mentioned, there's been quite a few fighters who perhaps, have been ducking you, and also at the same time haven't been given them opportunities from them. And I suppose, is there been any other cases where you have perhaps had beef with a certain fighter, but then gone and seen them or met them and, been able to squash that before?
Actually, no, surprisingly, like well, I would say, I think it's different because of the cultural background.
Yeah.
I feel like me and Dennis were able to. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna say that's the only reason. I don't know, but just me
Hmm.
and Dennis, we've happened to have a lot in common, and like I said, he's a good dude, and I'm a good dude, so we just happened to mesh and squash all the beef. But as far as other fighters, like more so mainly in America,
Hmm.
they're not as willing to bury the hatchet.
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, I take everything how it comes. It's like if you're willing to respect me, if you're willing to show love to me, I'll reciprocate and give it back to you. If you don't, however, then shit, I'm gonna treat you the exact same way, maybe even worse. It's just that's just how I am. You can either love me or you can hate me, but either way, it's gonna be reciprocated. So,
Do you feel like perhaps certain fighters have too big of an ego?
oh, absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. And my main target, Stephen Fulton,
Hmm.
he's probably the worst one thus far I've seen.
Why would you say?
Really, just because of the nature of how our predicament came about.
Hmm.
It was really more so a misunderstanding, and instead of trying to be men and trying to, keep it boxing, keep it respectful, he wanted to turn it into something else, into more like street fights, more like disrespect, just things that aren't really needed in the sport of boxing. So since that's the case, then now it's fuck him. And
Hmm.
now if I do see him, I'm going to tell him to his face that he needs to quit being a pussy and get in the ring with me. And I think other people are starting to see and follow suit that he is afraid of me. He's not willing to face nobody like me because I'm very dangerous. Whether he wants to believe it or anybody else doesn't want to believe it. I'm a very dangerous fighter. My 16 knockouts out of my 22 fighters don't speak for they speak for themselves. And I have knocked out actually quality opposition as well.
Do you rate at all Stephen Fulton's power?
Just oh no, Stephen Fulton's power, I probably would give it a three. Out of
Hmm.
he's known as a pillow puncher. That's been significantly rated by just about everybody. I mean, from Teddy Atlas, Paulie Malignaggi, um, Rick Glazer, just about anybody notable in boxing has mentioned how Stephen Fulton can't punch. So, I mean, against a power puncher like myself, who also has boxing ability, I don't see that fight faring well for him. And I'm eager to show and prove as well.
And moving up into that featherweight division, do you believe you are the hardest hitting puncher in that division?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
See, the thing was that I fought as high as 135,
Hmm.
early in my career because of my the knowledge that I didn't possess on how to cut weight properly. I never really knew how to cut weight properly, so I used to fight at my natural weight for the most part. I might cut like I knew how to cut like a little bit, but I would cut like maybe 8 pounds, 8 to 10 pounds.
Hmm.
That's about it. And I was doing that for my first 8 fights, and then I once I fought someone more experienced, I seen the difference in the strength, power, size, all that. So then I was like, okay, well, to give myself a fair fight, because at that time in 2018 when I received my first loss, realistically, if I knew how to cut weight, I could have made 118 easy, and I probably would have became um, undisputed or been one of the first fighters to be undisputed a long time ago. And I honestly believe that,
Hmm.
but it just things happen for a reason, and ultimately, I am where I am now, and I'm grateful to be here.
And I suppose to an extent, do you feel like there is a lack of American talent coming into these lower divisions at the moment?
Mhm. I mean, I'm not gonna say there's a lack. I'm just gonna say that in the end of the day, everybody is not given a fair shake in boxing.
Hmm.
There's a lot to do with politics.
Hmm.
There's a lot to do with things of that nature. So not everybody has the opportunity to get those big fights or get those opportunities to prove themselves. And I believe, and I'm one of those
Hmm.
men who haven't had his just due quite yet. And that's where I'm continuing to work hard and I'm continuing to persevere towards that. Because once that happens, people will see that, okay, he deserves to be in the spot that he's in.
Have you ever kind of felt that the business of boxing has ever been too much? Has it ever almost made you want to stop boxing altogether?
Oh, absolutely. Plenty of times, honestly. Especially after my second loss. Because my second loss was due to more so personal circumstance. I went through a divorce at that time. And it was just a lot on me. I'm a very family oriented man. So um dealing with that was very emotional for me, and having the after effects of seeing how boxing kind of betrayed me in a sense as well. um, it was very hard, but ultimately, because I'm a father of two now,
Mhm.
but at that time, I was just a father of one. That inspired me to continue to persevere, and and I was never bred to be a quitter, anyways. So I just continue to put that work hat on and grind it out, and look where we are now. We're top five in the world. Well, really in two divisions, 122 and 126. I just went up and I'm already top five. So that just only solidifies the pedigree of a fighter that I really am. And I'm just once again waiting on that opportunity to show and prove and let people know that I am who I say I am. And I'm deserving of being at that top echelon of fighters.
And of course, like you mentioned, your family, congratulations on your second child. And, you did a walkout, I believe it was for your last fight with your daughter. And I suppose how much of a motivation are your family?
Oh man, that's my biggest motivation. I've said this before, but a lot of people, have their nicknames or whatever, or their aliases. They kind of have gimmicks to them. Some people do, some people don't. Mine isn't. The Wolf, the W Triple XLF, the Wolf Elijah Pierce. That's not a gimmick. That's my life. That's who I am at the heart, at the root of myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm very, like I said, I'm very family oriented. The wolf is only as strong as the pack, and the pack is only as strong as the wolf. So ultimately, like them and having like even everybody on my team is very meaningful to me. All my coaching staff, all from my conditioning coach to my massage therapist to everybody who deals with me on my team. There's a very close relationship to everyone, and I'm just very big on unity amongst my team.
And after the, defeats that you did suffer, did it really kind of highlight who's around your team is, there for you and who was there, perhaps for bad reasons like financial gain for them?
Somewhat. I mean, like I said, in those the people who were on my team, they're no longer there.
Mhm.
Ultimately, with time, the people who aren't supposed to be there will always be weeded out.
Mhm.
Because I'm a strong believer in God, and I believe that God will always prevail in letting that be known, letting
Mhm.
me know that the correct path or the correct people who needs to be around me, will be around me, and those who aren't supposed to be around me will be eliminated in the long run.
And to speak about some previous fights of yours, going back to your amateur period, I've done some research of you as a fighter. I know you about professional side of things, and I've been following you for a while in that aspect. But amateur wise, I don't realize, you fought some really top guys, and that being Rolly Romero and Bruce Carrington, and names like that, especially Romero now. What do you make of what they've gone on to in their career?
I mean, honestly, like, well, one is solidification. Like, I feel like that once again is another thing that solidifies me and inside and lets me know that I'm on that same pedigree as those
Mhm.
gentlemen. And then two, I'm gonna be honest and say a bit, a slight bit of envy, just because. But at the same time, I've had to let that go for the most part because everybody has a different path. No, everybody's path is different. Nobody has the same path. Everybody has to go through their own trials in life to be where they are. And ultimately, me myself, I've went through a lot of struggles and a lot of trials in boxing, but I'm still here and I'm still building my way and walking my path to success. And and I just be wanting people to realize, like I said, like yeah, I've beaten Rolly. Like I said, Rolly is a multimillionaire. He's a world champion and everything else. I've beaten him in amateurs. So it just only go and I beat him unanimously. Like it was a like I actually beat him. I beat him very convincingly, and that's on YouTube. So it's like
Mhm.
that only just goes to show the skill set that I already possessed in as a youngster. You know what I'm saying? At 17 years old.
Mhm.
Now I'm 28 years old. So it just and I've learned and I've experienced and I've grown even that much more. So given the opportunity, I can present that I deserve to be on that level just as well. Same with Bruce Carrington. Bruce Carrington, he's been able to showcase himself, on top rank and whatnot. And the whole thing with me is that, like I said, because of my personal instances affecting my marketability is in terms of those losses that I had, that's the reason that I wasn't able to sign with those same promoters off the bat. But end of the day, like I said, the path is the path, man, and ultimately I'm walking mine, and I'm gonna continue to do so until I am world champion, and then and so on and so forth after that, and become unified, and then maybe undisputed. You just never know what God has in store for you.
And like you mentioned, you were fighting them at such a young age. You turned pro at, I believe, just 19 years of age. And I suppose, has that realistically only benefited you? Because yes, you might have been learning, but at this point, you've had so much experience and you're only 28 years of age.
Can you repeat that question? I mean, the question part.
So do you feel like, turning over at the young age in which you did has only kind of benefited you in the long term?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, when you start young at anything, and you that's always the better kind of the better time to become to jump in anything just because you will learn. But it's just all about the way that you learn. Some people learn from bad experiences. Some people are a little more protected and they're able to be guided through certain influence or certain people.
Mhm.
So it just all depends. But me, unfortunately, I wasn't necessarily able to have that type of guidance, and I had to. A lot of my experiences were through trial and error, and not only just in boxing, but in life. So I'm a very tough individual, and I'm very battle tested. So that's another reason why I say that whoever jumps in the ring with me, it's not going to be easy night for anybody. Just because, like I said, let alone I've not just been battle tested in the ring, having 22 fights against a lot of good opposition. I've also been battle tested through life, and I've overcame a lot of obstacles that a lot of people haven't probably would not have made it through.
And I suppose when you have little things perhaps go wrong in boxing because of what you have already been through in life, I'm sure, maybe somebody else that might affect more than you, but does stuff like that don't not really affect you? Does boxing politics not really affect you that much more at this point in your career due to what you've already had to go through?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've all of the things that I went through, they made me who I am today. So, I mean, ultimately, I mean, I'm grateful for it. Still, it may have been bad, but I'm grateful for it, and I'm only looking to further myself, further my career, and like I said, and give back to those who've given to me, and also, obviously take care of my children, and just continue to give my piece to the world. You know what I'm saying? Like the what I'm doing is in my thoughts is bigger than myself. I'm not just looking just for the money aspect of it. Is that a part of it? Of course, anybody wants to get paid for what they do,
Mhm.
but that is not the single goal that I have for myself. It's a lot bigger than boxing, and I believe that once that time comes, all will prevail, and I'll be the public figure that I'll be one of the public figures that the world needs.
And saying that, you're progressing on your career, you're moving up into this featherweight division now, but, in the super bantamweight division, you were rumored and linked to fight Inoue, seemingly a couple of times. With you being highly ranked, it was always possibility that you could have got your name in there. But was it ever frustrating for you to not have gotten that opportunity to have such a big, payday, such a big opportunity?
Well, see, the thing was, I actually was very well. I want to say it was sometime when he had the replacement fight against. I can't remember the guy's name, but he had a replacement
Yep.
from Japan. But it
Mm,
was around that time. I was actually I was very close to fighting him, very close.
mm,
But unfortunately, and I even, can be honest and say, man, I even cried. Like I genuinely cried once I got the news. But basically, I got the news that I could possibly fight him, it could really happen. But I had some dealings going on with my weight, and I couldn't make 122 no more. No man, I was because actually my last fight, August 30th against Jose San Martin,
Hmm.
I had really bad weight troubles, extremely bad weight troubles, and that even caused a very significant delay in my performance. To be honest, and and nobody knew I was actually injured in that fight. I had two leg injuries on both legs, but I just persevered and I kept a poker face and nobody knew, and I fought as if I was normal, but I was actually very hurt during that fight. And I was still able to do very well. I won by unanimous decision. But as far as my power and as far as everything else, I wasn't able to give my full ability. And so that was just something I had to rectify and look at. And being in there with someone well accomplished and like Inoue, I really wanted to be at my best when I fought him because honestly I know I could beat him.
Hmm.
And he's a great fighter. I'm not taking nothing away from him. I'm not taking nothing away from what he's done in the sport. He's a great fighter, and I give him the utmost respect. But do I believe I could beat him? Absolutely, without a doubt. And I felt like the difference in any of the other opponents that he's fought is that he hasn't fought anyone with the one with the caliber of power, speed, aggressiveness, and ring IQ that I possess. And I feel like that would have been a complete difference maker in the fight, especially early if he would try. Because I know anyway is someone who doesn't shy away from fighting in the beginning of the fight. He likes to take risks, which I do as well. So some I believe it would have been an explosive, great, just legendary type of fight. But ultimately, I still hope it can happen. Maybe at 126 because I hear he's rumored to go up.
Hmm.
So if he does, that would be a great fight, for me, especially to solidify, like I said, once again, who I am. But yeah, like I said, as far as 22, I wasn't able to make the weight anymore, and it was a extremely hard decision for me to go up. But I had to do what I had to do. My health and my body comes first.
No, that is good to hear that you are, of course, prioritizing yourself over anything else. And like I say, now moving on into the featherweight division, there is one British champion in which I would love to see you in a fight against Nick Ball. Have you been able to see too much of him? Do you rate him as a fighter?
Yeah, yeah, I did. Nick Ball, I've wanted that fight as well. He actually, before I went up to 22, I got offered that fight as well, and he declined. I don't know for what reason. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm not gonna, say like he ducked or anything like that. I have no particular I don't know the particular reason why he didn't accept the fight, but I got offered the fight, and I definitely took it. Immediately, and that my manager told me that they had declined. So I don't, it is what it is, but I would definitely love to face him too. I mean, as far as the WBA, that's been the one I've been the most highly rated. I was number three at 122 in the WBA, and now at 126, I'm number four. So I mean, I love the opportunity to fight him, and I believe it would be a similar sentiment. I believe I would win. I would definitely win the fight, and I don't think a lot of the tactics that he would be able to use against other fighters he would be able to use against me because, like I said, I have a lot of tools that haven't really even been unseen that I haven't even had to use yet in fights. I've beaten most of the fighters just off of pure strength and power, and just my normal boxing ability. I've yet to really showcase myself, and that's something I'm willing. I mean, I'm more excited to do as of now. Especially because I no longer. Well, I'm expecting to no longer have as bad of weight cuts and stuff like that. When me cutting weight and all that was giving me some pretty severe backlash. So
And just a couple more questions from me. I really appreciate your time, Elijah. And, you know, in the past, you have been, a big underdog. After your first loss, you were a big underdog, and then you were able to win. And would you, if happens, if the only chance of you getting a world title shot is, going to England or going to Japan or, like I say, really being this big underdog, do you not mind being the away fighter?
Oh, not at all. I mean, I've always considered myself the underdog. I've been an underdog since I was in the amateurs because from where I come from, I'm originally from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. You know, not a lot of people even know where that is. That it's not a boxing state by far. It's more of a football state. So, a lot of people are really unfamiliar with it, and I was probably one of the highest touted fighters from that state. So I was, I've been basically carrying a flag, and then ultimately I moved to Georgia, to Atlanta, Georgia, or whatever, and then I've been representing them thus far. So I've been back and forth since I was about 7 years old, six or 7 years old. So both states. I have ties in both states, and yeah. So now that I am a lot more experienced, it really doesn't matter where I go to fight. I'm always going to carry myself and represent my states with pride, and whether I'm an underdog or not, it's still not going to stop the performance. It's still not going to stop my ability to win and everything else.
And that's an amazing mindset. And, I'll leave with this final question, which I often like to ask people who come on the channel. And that is basically just to let you, thank anybody you want to thank, your supporters, any sponsors, anything like that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, man. Like I said, I have an absolutely great support system. And I mean, truly great. Even from my management team, shout out my managers, Tryfon Petrov and Jesse Tanksley. You know, my manager Tryfon Petrov actually found me online. And he's become one of the biggest facets to my career, making a 360 after my two losses. I was 9-2 with eight knockouts, and he seen my ability and he gave me a chance. And ever since he did that, I've been on an 11 fight win streak. Now I'm by knockout, and so I'm very grateful for him for believing in me. Jesse Tanksley, that's my stepfather. He's been absolutely great. I mean, he's supported me in my boxing endeavors. Probably one of the main people who has. And of course, I want to thank my parents, my mother and my father. My father, Andy Pierce, he's my head coach. He's the one that gave me the boxing ability that I possess. My mother, she's my backbone. She supports me more than anybody. Of course, shout out to my children, my son and my daughter. They're why I do this. They're my whole reason for trying to be the best man that I can possibly be. Thankful to my all my sponsors. They're very supportive as well. Just to name a few, Kuma CBD, um, C4 Energy. It's just a lot. Don Jose Mexican Restaurant, Bar and Grill. Um, so on and so forth. I mean, like I said, it's yeah. I have a lot of support, and just in general, all the fans from Oklahoma, all the fans from Georgia, and just all the fans around the world who continue to tune into my fights, and give me support. Like I said, anybody who reciprocates love to me, I'm always going to give it back. I'm not a person who's considered Hollywood or veers themselves too big to speak to fans or speak to the public. You know what I'm saying? I love everyone, especially those who love me. And even those who dislike me. I still you know um, give regard to those people. And but at the end of the day, those who don't support me or those who don't like me, it is what it is. But ultimately, I'm a sportsman. I'm a father first and foremost, and I'm very devoted to God. So, as long as I continue to believe in Him, nothing will be able to defeat me. And I'll leave with my favorite quote. No matter the conditions in the wilderness, a wolf will never eat grass. And by that, that just signifies, you know, um, the ability within myself to be relentless in the approach to whatever it is that I want in life. I've never given up, and I will never give up. And for those listening, I ask for you to do the same when in whatever regard or whatever goal that you're looking to pursue. You know what I'm saying? Keep the mindset that no one can stop you or deter you from getting whatever it is that you want out of life. As long as you put it in God's hands and you put in the work to achieve so, it will happen.
Elijah, great words. I really appreciate your time again. And, you've got me as a big fan from the UK, and I'm rooting for you getting a world title shot up at featherweight. I'm sure you will. And hopefully, we'll see you possibly fighting Nick Ball in the UK. That would be a huge fight for me. And, I appreciate you a lot, man.
No doubt, man. Shout out Axel 7 2. Like I said, anytime, brother, you would like me back or you would like any other information regarding, my fight schedules, anything, feel free to reach out. And it was a pleasure.
Oh, mate, I definitely will, man. Thank you very much again. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Likewise.
Perfect. Nice one. Thank you, man.
All right.